Welcome to This Explainer. You pull up a digital map today, and it's so incredibly easy to get the illusion that our hyper-connected world has been entirely conquered. I mean, we can literally zoom in on our own roofs from space, track real-time traffic across continents, and confidently tell our friends we know a shortcut, even if we definitely don't. It feels like every single inch of the globe has been documented, categorized, and uploaded to the cloud. But what if I told you that the map is actually deceiving us? It's a question that challenges our most basic assumptions about living in the 21st century. Is there actually anywhere left on Earth to explore? Well, the reality is that there are still profound, uncharted blank spaces on our map. We're talking about places with zero human contact, entire ecosystems that science has never even documented. So in this explainer, we're going to journey into these final uncharted mysteries and discover exactly why they remain locked away from the modern world. Okay, let's dive right into this. We're currently living under what we could call the fully mapped myth. Now, yes, high-resolution satellites are orbiting above every continent, and GPS systems can pinpoint a mountain range or a dense forest canopy within a matter of meters. But here's the catch. Mapping a surface is incredibly different from actually exploring it. A satellite looking down at a green jungle canopy, it can't document the hidden cave systems stretching into darkness beneath it. It absolutely cannot see the undiscovered species, the hidden rivers, or the ancient ecosystems just waiting underneath that dense foliage. And nowhere is this more glaringly obvious than in our oceans. 80%. Let that number sink in. That is the staggering amount of the ocean that remains completely unmapped and unexplored. We literally know more about parts of Mars than we do about vast regions of our own ocean floor. To put that into perspective, just think about the Mariana Trench in the Western Pacific. It plunges nearly 11 kilometers deep. Down at the bottom, the pressure is over 1,000 times greater than atmospheric pressure. Yet, even in that crushing, pitch-black environment, bizarre life is thriving around superheated hydrothermal vents. The deep ocean is, without a doubt, the absolute largest unexplored region on the planet. Section 1. Nature's Ultimate Fortresses, where the environment locks us out. Take Doong Cave in central Vietnam, for example. This is one of the most extraordinary discoveries of modern exploration, and it was largely unknown to science until the 21st century. This subterranean world is so mind-bogglingly massive that entire city blocks of skyscrapers could fit inside its chambers. It's so vast, it actually contains its own localized weather system, complete with clouds forming underground. It holds underground rivers, and in places where the ceiling has collapsed, entire lush forests are growing deep beneath the Earth's surface. It's just wild. And this extreme isolation is perfectly illustrated by the Pantapui and the neotropical Guyana highlands of South America. These dramatic tabletop mountains rise abruptly out of the rainforest with pristine, sheer vertical cliffs. And it's those sheer drops that have effectively isolated the summits from the world below for literally millions of years. Because reaching them requires extremely difficult climbs or helicopter drops, many of these ancient geological structures remain barely visited. They act like isolated islands in the sky. So, what does this all mean? The crucial point is how this extreme physical isolation breeds incredibly unique biological adaptations. In these dark and isolated corners, life evolves in ways that seem almost alien to us. We find bioluminescent fish generating their own light, and specialized microbes surviving under crushing deep-sea pressure. Up on those isolated summits of the tepuis, researchers have found rare, unique carnivorous plants and frogs that exist absolutely nowhere else on Earth. And in totally sealed subterranean environments, like Movil Cave in Romania, we find blind spiders and highly unique insects adapted to live entirely without sunlight. It's a pretty stark reminder that life always finds a way, even in the most alien environments, right here on Earth. Moving to Section 2. Forbidden by faith and law, when we are legally and culturally blocked. A really prime example of this is Gangharp Puensum. Standing at an imposing 24,836 feet, it actually holds the title of the world's highest unclimbed mountain. It's the 40th highest mountain in the world, and yet not a single human has ever stood at its summit. Now, it's incredibly remote, sure, and for a long time it was quite difficult to even place accurately on maps. But the main reason it remains unclimbed today, it sits right on a disputed border between Bhutan and Tibet, completely caught in a complex geopolitical and cultural web. The history of how this mountain was locked away is just fascinating. It was first mapped back in 1922, though early maps were notoriously inaccurate. Fast forward to the 1980s, human ambition takes over, and there were 4 separate expedition attempts to conquer the peak, all of which failed. But then, the legal and cultural boundaries shifted permanently. In 1994, out of deep respect for local religious beliefs that consider these peaks sacred, Bhutan banned the climbing of any mountains higher than 19,800 feet. By 2003, they instituted a total prohibition on mountaineering altogether. So Gangkhar Punsam was permanently locked away from human ambition out of pure respect. Section 3. The choice of isolation. Fiercely rejecting the outside world. Deep in the Amazon, particularly in a region called the Valle de Javari, which actually holds the greatest concentration of isolated groups in the world, live communities like the Pano linguistic group. And half a world away, over in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands of the Indian Ocean, live the Sentinelese on North Sentinel Island. Both of these groups are highly isolated, entirely self-sustaining, and vigorously resist all contact with the outside world. The contrast here is stark. And for these groups, it's quite literally a matter of life and death. On the one hand, you have incredibly successful, self-sustaining hunter-gatherer societies. They utilize deep, generational knowledge of their rainforests and coastal waters to manage natural resources sustainably. But on the flip side, you have severe, encroaching external threats. In the Amazon, these groups are facing massive pressure from illegal logging, mining, and drug trafficking. For all uncontacted peoples, a simple lack of immunity to outside diseases, even something like the common flu, could mean total annihilation. And in the Indian Ocean, nearby islands are facing massive developments, like the proposed 650,000% Great Nicobar megaport. International experts note this poses enormous ecological and survival risks to isolated groups in the archipelago. And when you actually look at history, this hostility to outsiders is deeply logical. Take the Sentinelese, for instance. Their fierce rejection of the outside world is a trauma-informed survival tactic rooted entirely in history. Back in the late 1800s, a British colonial officer named M.V. Portman landed on their island in the name of science. His party kidnapped an elderly Sentinelese couple and 4 children, taking them to the regional capital. Tragically, but entirely predictably, the adults quickly fell ill and died. The children were returned, likely carrying devastating diseases right back to the island. When you view their hostility through the lens of this harrowing intergenerational trauma, their determination to keep outsiders away makes perfect rational sense. Section 4. Locked away for science. Preserving nature's blank slate. Okay, let's look at this fascinating natural experiment, Surtsey Island in Iceland. Get this, this island didn't even exist before 1963. It was born from a violent submarine volcanic eruption. From the very moment the dark rock broke the surface, scientists realized they had a super rare opportunity on their hands. Iceland immediately restricted access. Only a handful of approved researchers are allowed to set foot there, and they have to follow incredibly strict rules. Why? So they can study exactly how life colonizes a completely new landmass. Over decades, they've watched seeds arrive naturally via the wind and bird feathers, and they're documenting how bare volcanic lava slowly breaks down to form soil. It's literally a living laboratory of life beginning from scratch, proving that nature is a way better gardener than most of us. We see a very similar principle applied to ancient environments too, like Moville Cave in Romania, which we mentioned earlier. This bizarre subterranean world was completely sealed off from the outside surface for hundreds of thousands of years. The air inside has a totally unusual toxic chemical composition, and sunlight has literally never breached its walls. Yet, life thrives there. So when it was discovered, rather than turning it into some massive tourist attraction, access was heavily restricted. It acts as a living laboratory of evolution, teaching us exactly how life can adapt to the most extreme, isolated conditions imaginable.
So, the crucial takeaway here represents a massive shift in our modern understanding of exploration. T.N. Pandit, the former director of the Anthropological Survey of India, a man who spent years involved in government contact missions with the Sentinelese, eventually came to this powerful conclusion. Regarding the policy to stop all visits and just leave the tribe alone, he said, "The government is committed to maintaining the status quo. I support this policy fully." Modern governments and scientists are increasingly realizing that sometimes the absolute best policy is to just step back, leave places untouched, and respect the boundaries of both nature and humanity.
Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought. For centuries, human progress was defined by crossing oceans, climbing to the highest peaks, and shining a light into the darkest caves. But as we've seen throughout this explainer, from the crushing depths of the Mariana Trench to the sacred slopes of Gangkar Punsam and the protected shores of North Sentinel Island, our understanding of the world has really matured. We've moved from recognizing our physical limits to respecting moral and scientific boundaries. So I'll ask you, in a world where we have the technology to conquer almost anything, is the greatest act of modern exploration simply choosing not to explore? Thank you so much for joining me, and keep questioning the map.